Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.
Hello, it's lovely to see you. Welcome to another episode of Truth Wanted. I'm one of your hosts, Jon the Skeptick. This is a live call-in show that happens on what is mine and Rebecca Black's favourite day of the week, Friday at 7 Central. Truth Wanted is a show where we talk to people about what they believe and why they believe it. So if you'd like to give us a call, the number is 1-512-991-9242, and you can see it in the bottom of the screen there. Or you can also call through your computer at tiny.cc/calltw. Truth Wanted is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 non-profit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. Oh, I did that well, I think. I'm saying that for myself. Anyway, this week is a twofer. You get two of the regulars, although I don't really call myself a regular yet. I've barged her out of the way to take over the announcements. It's me, and you know her, ExXtian Erin. Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Thank you for having me.
Well, we were kind of like, let's make this happen so we can play together.
And welcome, Jon. Welcome to the team of Truth Wanted.
Thank you.
Happy to have you.
What's going down? What's happening in ExXtian land?
Oh, ExXtian land. Oh, I don't know. Canada. I almost said Canada. Canada is, the American little brother. So we have kind of like a low key version of anything going on in the American politics.
Sure. And I'm from the Commonwealth as well. So like what you have, like the UK is even smaller than that. Yeah. So we were going to talk about, you had a great idea to like compare some of the things about religion and all that stuff in Canada and the UK. So, I mean, I'm from a place where religion isn't really spoken about. And we were talking pre-show about you kind of having been to the UK and trying, back in the days of being a believer, like you tried to help people hear about the truth of a Lord, and how did that go?
Yes, I took such pity on the people of the United Kingdom that I went there as a missionary.
Right.
Back when I was about 18 or 19 years old, I did a missionary team. So it was like a year-long thing where we did a lot of Bible study work and like missionary work. I was on a band. We did dramas, like all early 2000s kind of stuff where we, typical things where you kind of have a street ministry thing and you go out and you try to convert people to your religion. I had been on a team for about a year, and we were initially going to go to Haiti, which is, kind of more typical for missionary work. But last minute, the government shut us down. So we ended up going to our second choice, which was the UK. And we spent 2 months over there, like a month in England and a month in Scotland, and doing essentially the same thing. So street ministry, running kind of youth programs, typically youth, young adults programs, like taking over churches, taking over different kind of community centers and doing things to try to attract people into the event, and then where we would, proselytize to them. And my whole experience was completely what I didn't expect from it. And I've spoken about this kind of briefly before, but for me, coming from a Pentecostal, fundamentalist, charismatic, very like just in your face kind of Christianity, I expected a different reaction. And when I went to the UK, I don't think it's just necessarily a cultural thing. It was maybe also just kind of the typical stance on religion, I think, was what I was facing. There was a very different reaction, and the reaction was more that of, what are you doing? Right. What are you saying? You guys are a little intense, and just a lot of apathy towards what we were saying.
So did you notice that there was, I just flicked myself in the face. Did you notice that there was a difference between Scotland and the UK with, the UK, England with what you were saying?
It was, I would say that there was even a little bit more pushback when we were in England,
Oh, wow.
honestly. There was a little bit more of like, we were maybe more embarrassing to the people when we were in England. The kind of outgoing nature of the charismatic church that I was coming with, they there was just a little bit more of like, you were kind of an embarrassment to us.
Right.
It generally, as the farther north we got, the kind of more friendly they were, and almost more there took sympathy on us because we were being so out there in their faces. We had a lot of like, the whole time we were there, honestly, we had amazing people who hosted us, and like I met some of the most wonderful people there. Honestly, the whole
Right.
trip was amazing. I would come back any day. But when we were doing the actual ministry part, like it was kind of embarrassing, honestly. We'd be on the
Right.
street and singing songs and trying to get people in, and offering like street prayers, things to try to like do
Wow.
healing ministries, like the stuff you see on YouTube, right? And I would say that the farther north we got and the more rural we got,
Mhm.
there was more, at least some people kind of coming to, see what we were all about, rather
Right.
than just walking straight by us.
Right. And I'm from the south of England, so I can feel
Get
that.
that.
I'm from a very non-religious part of the UK.
Right.
And we would almost, and it's horrible to say, but you would almost look at folks that did believe as the strange ones, because
Yeah.
like, well, why haven't you kind of caught up to where we are? Why are you still believing this when there is no evidence for us to
Right.
believe? So why are you still there? So that makes complete sense.
One of the interesting things that I remember very clearly was that we had, I don't know why, honestly, I don't know why we were allowed to do this, but we were allowed to come into a high school at one point and
Huh,
do I think we did like 2 or 3 drama, like those dramas that are set to like a song, and then we would have like a very short kind of message at the end. And I remember doing the act, and then doing our message, and then afterwards there was like a time for questions. And I remember I was like about 18 or 19, and then
right.
we were in this high school and having these like 16-year-olds be like, what are you doing? And I remember being really embarrassed because I was
Right.
like, oh, these 16-year-olds think I'm stupid. But
Wow.
at the time, I spoke to you about this earlier. At the
Mhm.
time, I didn't quite register what was going on.
Right.
At the time, I just thought that I needed more um the Bible knowledge, more like I was just missing part of my ministry. I didn't realize that it was just that like
Right.
the whole thing was coming across as kind of um just uneducated or
Right.
kind of embarrassing to them.
Oh, wow. And
Yeah.
so I never actually really grew up religious. I got christened when I was a child, but that was just because it was more of a traditional thing.
Right.
And I think religion in the UK is still just a traditional thing. The royals do it because that's what they have to do by, like, that's the way they do things.
Well, that's how they get the
Um,
royalty, right?
well, exactly, right. But
Kind of important.
I think ever since Henry VIII made the Church of
Mhm.
England, I think that was kind of the downfall of all religion in the UK. It just slowly started falling apart back
Yeah.
then, maybe. But so I didn't necessarily grow up religious, but I was saying to you earlier that this is going to be something different. Maybe I grew up spiritualist,
Mhm.
so I grew up being taught that I could speak to dead people, and I would go to churches that where people would sit at the front and give readings to people in the audience, and I always thought that was really cool, and I
Right.
eventually wanted to do it one day. But I wouldn't dream of now going and doing that to even to a school, going into a
Right.
school and going, now kids, I'm going to speak to some dead people for you, and let you just tell me
Right.
if this is someone you're related to, which is essentially how all this works. You give them some questions and they go, that could be me.
Right. And honestly, I had mentioned like it's tomato tomato.
Right.
Like you call it spiritualism, I called it charismatic
Right.
fundamentalism. You call it talking to dead people, I called it prayer. So I mean, there was a lot of things that functionally were the same, but
Right.
we called them different things. So I
Right.
mean, as much as that might have sounded a little wacky coming off to like a high school student, it might not have come across as weird because of we're
Right.
culturally trained that it's normal to
Right.
pray to a dead person.
Right.
So I mean, and like when you say like giving messages from dead people, like I'm immediately taken back to growing up in church and having people do something called word of knowledge or something, where like at my church there would be somebody in the audience who would be having this message kind of from God
Wow.
for somebody. So it's like a direct message for somebody, and it was always, it's very similar. It's kind of the Barnum statements. It could apply, could not apply, depending on how you are feeling that day and whether you had breakfast.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
depending on whether the grass is blowing east or west or something,
Yeah.
any of that stuff. Before we carry on, we better mention that we do have a poll running. And it's about Friday the 13th. And if you answer the poll, we will give you the results at the end of this episode.
I didn't even realize it was a Friday the 13th
I know, right?
today.
How would Friday...
Should I be scared? I don't think...
Well, I would have been like 5 years ago, maybe. Actually, maybe last week. How did Friday the 13th affect you as a religious thing? Did it affect you?
I honestly don't think I would have considered it too much, other than thinking that there may be more opportunity for spiritual deception or like oppression that day. So I grew up like we really stayed away from things like Halloween and anything that was like, I didn't watch horror movies. I didn't even watch like Star Wars growing up. So anything that was like a little out there, we really stayed away from it. So on these days in particular, it was just really important that we went to youth group, because my youth group was on Friday. So Friday the 13th would often be like a night of like spiritual intercession at youth group, where we would spend a lot of time in prayer and kind of fighting the spiritual warfare that was going on. But like, I mean, overall, I don't remember there being like a specific thing that was like scary about Friday the 13th, other than it was just a reminder that the world is fallen.
Right. So from a spiritualist point of view, Friday the 13th is like the doorway that opens up to the other side, and you get more paranormal activity on Friday the 13th. And a big thing in my family was to crowd around the TV and watch a program where a medium would speak to dead people, and they'd leave cameras in different rooms. It was called Most Haunted in the UK. I don't know what the equivalent over on this side of the pond or in Canada is. But so we would all
Long
crowd
Island
around.
Medium.
Maybe something like that. But we would crowd around and just like be watching these cameras, and something might move, and they go, oh look, we've got some paranormal activity and we can't explain it. And I don't know how I would feel watching that sort of thing now, because now that I've got more of a critical mind, and it's not a great critical mind, but now that I have this going on, I wonder how I'd react to things like that happening on shows like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, even when I was a Christian, I would watch shows about mediums, and like part of my belief system was that like that stuff is real, but you're just not supposed to mess with it.
Right.
So I would watch these shows about mediums, and they would be like very touching to me. It would seem very genuine in a lot of ways, but I just thought there was this this line that you don't cross as like a follower of Jesus, that you don't cross that line into like that. But it was real. So all of the stuff that was on TV about mediums and like spiritualism, that was real to me still, even when I was a Christian. And so that was like my stuff that I would watch that I wasn't supposed to watch. That was like my bad TV that I would watch. But I found it like really very like convincing at the time, because why wouldn't it be? Everything else about that whole the whole concept of that was very real to me. So now I watch it and I'm just kind of like looking for cues of like, if I do watch it, I'm looking for cues of like the cold reading and oh, so like this person said that, and like if I wasn't in that room at that time, that's a very benign statement they just made. I could make that apply to me. I could make it apply to someone else. Like I'm seeing that now.
I now look at camera angles more than anything. If something's going to move and you're like, oh, it's just slightly out of frame, and what's going on over there? Can you trust these people? I don't know.
I don't know.
I guess we should maybe look at some calls, but first, we do have a very important person to mention. It's going to be our patron of the week. Each week we shout out a patron who donates through Patreon TW, and they support the show. And this week's patron of the week is, drumroll, Curtis. Thank you, Curtis, for supporting Truth Wanted. If I had a confetti cannon, I would be popping it right now. Thank you to everyone else as well that donates, and all these things through Patreon and supporting the show is fantastic and helps the ACA and Truth Wanted. There's another way that you can do it as well, isn't there, with the becoming a member on the channel, so that you can get little perks by clicking join for as little as 99 cents a month, and you get some cool Truth Wanted little emojis that you can use. And also I noticed that you can get an ExXtian Erin little face there.
What?
I don't know
I did not know that.
I just saw it just there. But I'm wondering who I'm going to have to harass to be able to get that of me. I want a cartoon version of this.
I didn't know that. I do know that I knew there was emojis of Dan for a long time.
Oh, really?
I feel very honored that they have created one for me.
I saw you on there.
Oh, there they are. Yeah, they've got one for all of us. you, myself, Dan, and also
I didn't see
MD.
Wow.
MD aware as well.
That's brilliant. Well, we have got a call if you want to take it. We've got Jamie, him in Texas, who'd like to he's normally skeptical, but is superstition a function of societal cues? Do you want to elaborate on that for us, Jamie? Hello, welcome to the show. You're with Jon and Erin.
All right there, John. It's Jamie from England.
Oh, it's Jamie. All right there, mate.
Jamie.
How am you?
I'm all right. What a Boston, mate. I'm brand new. Anyway, enough of this hieroglyphics. Don't want to alienate all the listeners. And a few of them don't like me anyway, but I'll press on. So I'm skeptical. I'm big into believing true things, not believing not true things. But there are certain things I'm still superstitious about. Small, silly stuff, like I won't let people roll dice for me, for example. And I have found that occasionally I feel, and it's just a feeling, that I've had quote unquote bad luck on Friday the 13th. For example, today I woke up and my neck was absolutely killing me, and I had to take it off work because I just couldn't keep my head properly up without it being agonizing. Unfortunately, I think that's just my mind playing tricks on me. I think it's bad luck just because it happens to be Friday the 13th. And I think that when we go out into the world and we're around a bunch of other people who are also really tense because it's a bad day, we subconsciously pick up on it. And we're kind of primed to not only see things as bad luck, but remember them as well. And so the rational part of me says, nope, it's just coincidence. But the inquisitive part of me keeps saying, but there must be a reason why you keep remembering these things and why it endures.
Wow. Okay. I mean, it is difficult to get away from all those things that it had ingrained in us. I know in the UK as well, this is another one that I used to do. I don't do it so much now because it's not a thing here, but you might remember this, Jamie. 3 drain covers in the UK, like a line of 3 drain covers. And wherever you were in the UK, it would dictate how you treated walking over them. Did you do that when you... So for me, it was always, you could walk over the first 2, but you had to jump over the 3rd one or something terrible would happen to you. And if it was Friday the 13th, you just wouldn't even go anywhere near those drains. Did you do anything like that, Jamie?
First and 3rd, mate. Got to jump the 2nd.
Well, there you go. See? And that's a Midlands thing compared to a Southern thing then. I mean, I'm with you. I still sometimes feel like occasionally something bad has happened because I maybe have done something bad, and it's just for me training my brain to go, come on, that's just is a bit silly, but I mean I understand where you're coming from.
Right.
What do you think, Erin?
Yeah, I'm thinking about kind of like the psychological concept of like a self-fulfilling prophecy or like your mental filters. I know that there has been quite a bit of research kind of done on this, that if you have a particular filter that you're looking at something through, whether it's a day or whether it's a whole area of your life, if you kind of have a mental focus on something in particular being positive or negative, it is more likely for either the outcome to be like that or for you to interpret the outcome to be like that. So I see superstition a lot like that. So whether you have something that signifies the superstition or kind of a filter overall feeling about it, you're more likely to interpret the events to be like that. Right. I think it works both ways too, whether you think it's like Friday the 13th and you're already have a filter to look for the things that went bad that day. And then you look on the other side of it and you look at people who are using words like, oh, I'm manifesting things. Whether you have a positive outlook on things, you're going to interpret things to be more of a positive light. So there is quite a lot that our minds can do, whether you are focused on something in particular. So things like Friday the 13th, or Halloween, or other kind of significant days that we have and that's magnified, I think, also too, whether other people are also looking through that filter. So yes, basically my answer to the question is I do think it's a function of society in a lot of ways, and also very personally too. I know that for myself, since I kind of let go of that sort of stuff, unless I woke up in the morning and thought today is a bad day, most times Friday the 13th just go off like any other Friday. I had mentioned to John earlier, I had forgotten that it was Friday the 13th today, and my day has been just fine right up until we mentioned it. And I have to sometimes think that I need to make a mental note, because I grew up in a superstitious kind of way, that I have to remind myself that there's nothing different about today. It's just a silly little thing that we, come to as a society to filter this day in some way or another. So,
I think going forward, like maybe we should all kind of like do things on purpose that are bad luck, and feel a little bit naughty, and just retrain our brains to go, actually, like open an umbrella indoors, go under a ladder, walk under. Actually, that's probably not a good idea.
I do actually think that's a big part of it, right? Like, I know that there were things when I came out of religion that I had always assumed were just such kind of bad omens, and doing them and realizing that literally nothing happened, to kind of break the superstitions in that way, right? I mean, there's always the off chance of just coincidence, and you do something and then something horrible happens that day, and now your confirmation bias is going to be confirmed like crazy. So you gotta work against that. But I would say that if anything, I think that society should make more like positive days, like maybe every Tuesday the 4th or whatever is the day that everybody has a great day and everything goes well for you, and just see what happens, right?
That's actually a genius idea. Maybe we should start that.
Why are we so negative?
Yeah, why?
Yeah.
Have you got anything else for us, Jamie?
My brain just exploded with a few thoughts, all small. I'll run through them quickly and then let you go to take more important calls. But first, we do have secular holidays. Unfortunately, they're all tied to commercialism, like May the 4th.
Talk like a pirate. Not so much.
Yeah. Secondly, buy your Disney merch. Secondly, confirmation bias, big bright letters. Absolutely remember that. For example, today also, DoorDash got my order wrong. I didn't receive my burger. But they've done that several times. There's nothing special about it. It just so happened to happen on Friday the 13th, because it just so happened to happen that this Friday's payday. So, and third, a good friend of mine, excellent friend of mine, named David, collected bad luck on purpose, just as you said. And just a quick story. When I was in university, I went to the University of Birmingham, and there is the tallest freestanding clock tower in the world, Old Joe. And it is said by those who know, if you walk beneath Old Joe as its clock chimes, you shall fail your exams. So we did it on purpose, and both of us passed.
There you go. That's how you get around it.
Right. So get your ass down to Austin, John. I know you're in the continent. No excuse.
I'm in the right place. Okay, well, we'll work on that. Thanks, Jamie. Thanks for calling. That was fun. So with superstitions, I had some really fun things that I used to do when I was at school. So Jamie was just saying about that one about passing exams. There was a very old building that I went to school at called Shaw House. And it was supposedly haunted. And if you ran around one of the big oak trees, it was enormous. It must have been like, I don't know, 12 feet around it in circumference, a huge thing. If you ran around it 3 times and then looked up at the top window, you'd see the grey lady staring at you, no matter what time of day it was. We tried it. We never saw her.
I tried those too. Not that one in particular, but I remember being in like junior high school, and then probably the most rebellious thing I did throughout my young teenagehood was try to do like Bloody Mary in the mirror, like at a sleepover, and I remember being scared out of my mind, because why wouldn't it be true, right? Like I had no other way to like conceive of this idea, and yeah, doing it, and nothing happened, right? And so and of course, at that time, talking about confirmation bias, I just believed that like, oh, I had some sort of like angel protecting me from having that happen, because there to me, I was like, oh, it's real, because all of this stuff is real. So the only way to explain, like, there's just so many avenues you can go down to either explain it or excuse it away from not happening. So I think it just makes a lot of sense. Like, superstitions make sense to me, why that happens for people, right?
And it kind of helps you get through the day as well, if you can you can attribute something happening. I get that.
You get your lucky underwear for your hockey game or whatever. Speaking as a Canadian, you got your lucky underwear, and then like that underwear gives you, a little bit of a boost in confidence, and you play better. So then you maybe have a better chance of winning. And then you're like, okay, that confirmed for me that like this underwear needs to be worn every game, which is.
I'm an actor as well, and so I work at a theater, and
there's a lot of superstition in that, isn't there?
Yeah, right. You're not supposed to whistle on a stage. Now listen, the acoustics on a stage are fantastic, and if you can whistle, it sounds amazing. That no one's going to tell me that I can't.
Missed opportunities for whistling.
Right. There you go. And like, if you wear a certain pair of socks, you have to wear that pair of socks for the entire show run without washing them, which is just disgusting. Yeah. Never mind. We do some announcements. If you'd like to support the show, which we kind of touched on a second ago, we're going to mention it now properly. You can do so by donating to our Patreon at tiny.cc/PatreonTW. There's a couple of different tiers there, so you can get your name shouted out like we did for Curtis a little while ago if you do donate. You can support the show, again, like being a member, and you get emojis. I'm saying this now because I really want to see if my emoji comes up. That's why I'm saying it. So,
please become a member so you can use our new emojis. Exactly. We're really excited about
I want to see. Am I there? I didn't see me. But just for as little as 99 cents a month. And also, there's another way you can support us. If you do shop on Amazon or Amazon, how do you say it? Because I'm sure I say it wrong.
Well, I'm Canadian. Amazon. I say Amazon.
Amazon. I don't know. Then you can support the ACA at no cost to you. Just simply visit tiny.cc/AmazonSmileACA and designate the atheist community of Austin as your selected charity. And Amazon will donate a portion of their profit directly to the ACA. So there's loads of ways that you can help out. And also, because it's Friday the 13th, we're definitely looking for some superstitious kind of calls like Jamie just did as well. What other superstitions affect you?
What other, like when I was
or even like, do you still, like you're saying, like maybe something now will just affect you a little bit? I don't
know if I've just like lost all my like force for this kind of stuff. I really did like drop it all at once, honestly.
Right. Oh, really?
I used to have a lot of superstitions, and I just even like like the silly ones, like walking under ladders or like a black cat and stuff like that, very typical ones. Like I used to have a lot of superstitions, but I've talked about before how I went through, like, I left Christianity, but then I went into spiritualism and New Age kind of stuff for a long time, or not for a long time, I guess. For me, when I look back now, I'm like, I can't believe I spent 12 months in that.
That's a long time looking at crystals.
Yeah. So I had superstitions about like I needed to put my crystals out under the moon and stuff like that. Otherwise they weren't going to work as well and things like that. But honestly, I really did kind of drop it all at once. And it's amazing to me. Especially the first like year or so, as I went through the whole full year of kind of different seasons and different dates that came and went, when nothing changed. And like I would wake up in the morning and just be like, what if today is just a normal day? And then nothing. And literally, if I kind of set my mind to that, that was also a self-fulfilling prophecy, that if I woke up and I decided that today was going to be like any other day, and anything that went weird is the same probability that it would have gone weird yesterday.
Right.
It really just kind of all dropped away from there. So I don't know. I think it's interesting to see what kind of things still linger for a lot of people. And I feel fortunate that like those things, maybe, I mean, I know some things are kind of hard to let go emotionally too. I think that for some reason it just kind of all fell away at once for me, and I was grateful for that. Some people that I know who have kind of left religion or different spiritual movements, like they can intellectually fall away from it, but there's still kind of emotional kind of block, and they're like, well, I'll just see. I'll see if it's true.
Sure.
And then if it's fine, then yeah, it's true. But that's just another form of confirmation bias. So it's kind of something some people have to kind of work through.
It's interesting that it all of a sudden everything just dropped away from you, because I where I didn't actually believe in a deity as such, the rest of it I feel like took a long time for me to step away from. So I spent a long time using agnostic in the incorrect way, where you'd use it as a stepping stone between atheism and I'd never actually called myself atheist until I was probably in my late 20s. But so I was like spiritualist, I believed in an afterlife and ghosts, and then kind of used agnosticism just for the God side of things, but continued to believe in ghosts and spirits until a long time. And it would affect me if I was living by myself on Friday the 13th as a spiritual believer. I couldn't have gone through the house without having to turn on every single light between rooms. It would really have freaked me out, because I would be like, there's someone there waiting for me in ghostly form. So it would take me ages to go from the front door to my bedroom when I still lived with my parents, but they'd all be asleep. I'd switch on the hall light, and then I'd go up, switch on the upstairs hall light, come back down to turn off that light, then work my way around just switching on and off lights, because it was
interesting.
It was
what a
terrible.
nightmare.
That
sounds like a good way to like kind of set someone up to develop something like a obsessive compulsive kind of issue, right?
I think that was a
and that is a real thing. And to be fair and to mention it, like there are people who actually do suffer from that. There is a form of like obsessive compulsive disorder or obsessive compulsive personality that actually do fall kind of under like the religious belief or like a spiritual version of that. I've met people myself that like I had a friend who was a former Hebrew roots, so it's kind of like a Christian, it's like a messianic Christian type of denomination, but they are following kind of like the Jewish and the Judaic traditions of all their prayers and that sort of thing, and it actually kind of did develop into a form of OCD for them, and it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible for them, and it wasn't until they kind of deconstructed their faith that they were able to like kind of break away from that, and they're much better now. But like anything, any kind of superstition can it can fall into that area where you feel quite obsessive about making sure you do everything right. Otherwise, like I think of kind of the idea of that external locus of control. Like this is like this idea that like if you have control over your life, or whether it's something exterior to you, I think that is maybe it for a lot of people, maybe the explanation of kind of why they fall into it, whether you have that kind of view or not. So I think about that a lot, actually, like whether it's something outside of you, which can be really kind of paranoia causing for a lot of people.
What is the one superstition that you don't miss from back then?
I used to really, really fear, and I don't remember where this was taught, but I used to really fear not praying or wishing prayer for a safe drive. So whenever anybody that I care, anytime anybody would leave the house and they're driving somewhere, I used to have to say, and I still do say it, but I don't mean it the same way. I always say like, okay, have a great day, drive safely. And that's just kind of how I talk. But I used to mean something different by it. And if I said, please, drive safely, and I didn't have a sincere like plea in my heart, I guess I would say, I truly felt that if they had an accident, it would be my fault. And even growing up, I remember being very fearful in the vehicle, because if we didn't pray before we took off for our drive, that there was a higher chance that we would die. So I had a lot of fear around driving. And it was somehow in my control that if I prayed or not, that we would have protection or not. So that's one I really don't miss, that one, because I realize a lot more now that like I can't control what happens other than my own vehicle and how I'm driving. I can't control what happens when other people are at fault for like a vehicle collision or something. But that used to really terrify me.
It's weird, but I also, maybe it's just because of a Commonwealth thing, but I also naturally say, like, drive safe or safe journey, let us know when you get back. It's just and it's not necessarily that I'm saying it for them, I'm saying it more for me.
Yes,
and that's
it's part of it's just like a culture, and you're just trying to be polite and caring, and you truly do. When when a family takes a drive 2 hours and they're going to be driving at night, I truly do want to know if they got there okay.
Yeah, right.
But I'm not tormenting myself for that 2 hours thinking that, are they safe and did I pray hard enough? Because it's somehow going to, like, if they were to get in an accident, I would not be able to live with myself, because if they had gotten in an accident, that would somehow make me feel guilty that I hadn't prayed more sincerely.
Yeah. But it's weird for me because I didn't have that side of things to worry about, and I would have known it wouldn't have been my fault, but it's still I still feel like, maybe as James was saying, that it's, you kind of need these things in society just to make yourself maybe feel better. And yes, it's like some kind of superstition that you just have to have and keep hold of so that you get through life and feel better about things.
Right. And also just text me when you get there, please.
Yeah,
right. Even if I'm not superstitious, I still want to know you got there okay.
I just care about you, family. Jeez. But that's, well, so we haven't got many calls in the list right now, but we'll talk about our fundraiser that we have got going on. So right below the chat, we've got a direct fundraiser, and 100% of the money donated to the fundraiser goes directly to the ACA. So YouTube and Google don't actually take any of the money, which is good. Today, we have a goal of $420. We hope that isn't too high. That's great writing. Whoever did that. Thank you to everyone that donates. It really helps us get the mission out there for the ACA. I mean, some of the writing, genius. So, are your family that do still believe, are they still superstitious, would you say?
Yes.
Yeah.
They wouldn't call themselves superstitious.
Okay. How would they describe it?
Oh, just strong believers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think that there's, I mean, when you're inside of a particular denomination, and I'm not speaking for everyone, I'm just speaking on the people that I know and the denomination I grew up in. There's almost not an awareness that the way that you are believing and kind of moving about life is highly superstitious.
Right.
So, a lot of my family and extended family who would consider themselves just Christian are actually very, very, very superstitious.
Wow. Yeah. And I think a lot of my family, despite not being believers, like, they will do things that they know are superstitions and will continue them. My dad, I think, especially, he's very superstitious. And he still watches all of these shows about talking to dead people, because I think he just enjoys it, and maybe he doesn't believe in it, but maybe a big part of him does. We don't really talk about it that much, but it'd be interesting to get some of my family to see, now that they know that I do this, to see if they would continue maybe we don't believe the superstitions as much as we used to. I don't know. That'll be
right. I feel like if we were to ask your family who comes from like spiritualism and my family who comes from charismatic Christianity, if we were to do like a true or false kind of quiz, they would answer a lot of the questions the same.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. We should I want to hear more about your time in the UK and whereabouts you went, because I haven't been back to the UK since late 2021. So
okay, I was there way before that. It was a long time ago.
Right. So what was the mission? Was to go and try and convert people?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was on a go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, so, but what big differences, other than like not being brought in, not being accepted, I guess, what were the other big differences you noticed between here and there and the UK?
First of all, it was just even the language that we spoke, like the actual words that we used to communicate our message. There was like this complete urgency in the way that we were taught to speak about it. Like, obviously, I grew up in a Pentecostal, so it was like we believed that the rapture was coming, and there was this urgency that like Jesus was coming back any 5 minutes now, so you need to like literally drop everything you're doing. And like pray for forgiveness and do it right now. That whole idea just didn't come across at all.
Right.
And I remember being very like, I mean, dismayed in a lot of ways, because I was like, you are not getting it. You're not understanding how much this is literally going to happen. It could happen in half an hour from now. It could happen in 5 minutes from now. It could happen tomorrow. And so to realize that so many of the people that I was talking to, were just kind of like, oh yeah, that's interesting. Okay, I'll take your, your little, what do you have there? A handout? Okay, cool. Yeah. Oh, you're going to have something on the weekend? Oh, I might come. I have a birthday party to go to. And I was like, you're not getting it. This is literally an emergency, which, later on I realized was like a kind of a traumatic kind of thing I was going through, that this like idea that this hypervigilance that I had towards the ends being so near that I couldn't even see very far into the future. So the urgency really wasn't coming across. The other thing was that I had this view of kind of the way that you expressed your belief and your love for God was through these big emotional kind of displays, speaking in tongues and dancing and falling onto the ground and crying and whatever. I mean, that kind of stuff. When you talk about, well, I don't know if you ever saw the documentary Jesus Camp. There's this documentary that a lot of people have seen, and it's like, most people talk about it, that it's just like so wild, because there's these young kids just crying and wailing and praying and speaking in tongues, and that was normal for me. So when I would go to these or even if we would have these services, the fact that people didn't express the same way, to me, I had this belief, and I don't know if this was necessarily taught or if it was just an assumption I had, that unless people had this expression the same way that I had been raised, that they were not sincere. So I would really, really doubt that any of the work that we were doing was actually coming through for a lot of people, because, and I mean, British folks are a little more conservative in the way that they would express themselves. And so that was something I didn't understand at 18 or 19 years old. So, and honestly, growing up, when I got older, I realized that I actually felt really uncomfortable about that kind of stuff too. And I don't actually, even a few years later, I left that kind of denomination, and I stayed a Christian for a long time longer, but I felt much more comfortable in a church that didn't act that way. So I'm not sure. It's just very interesting. But overall, I just felt very discouraged, very much like there's this kind of this shadow across the UK. I can't remember how I wrote it in my journal once upon a time. There's this shadowiness over the entire United Kingdom that people are just not getting it. And it's just similar to thinking that you were going to a community that just had a false belief about something different, even though many of the people I spoke to call themselves Christian. But like, you're not a real Christian.
No
until you're acting the way I do.
Absolutely. So you went over when you were 19, was that? So you're
18
essentially you're a
19.
child. You're a child, and like you've been pushed out into the big wide world to go and tell people about stuff that you can't really demonstrate. That's so fascinating.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to think about how I coped with that too. So I came back home, and I mean, obviously, I didn't have a lot to tell my home church once I got home. Like, people, if anybody's grown up in like a church where they send missionaries off, when you come home, they want to hear your stories. And I had no stories to tell. So I remember feeling really, really like discouraged. And the way that I explained it to myself at the time was that I didn't know enough. So the answer was going to Bible college, because I needed to have a better understanding and found, the words I would use. I need to be grounded in the Bible. I needed to learn more and understand more, because there was clearly something lacking on my end. So I went to Bible college after that to try to understand the Bible better.
And the question would be, did it help? But we know the answer to that. Because here we are.
It really didn't. And I went to Bible college. I had signed up for a longer program initially, and then I ended up cutting it down because I got halfway through my Bible study course, and I remember feeling like the answer is just faith. Every time I would write these essays, and it didn't matter almost what I put down, as long as I put at the end of my my summary of my essay but it all comes down to faith. And I graduated with distinctions. Like, I did amazing. I did really good in Bible college. And I walked away thinking this makes less sense than when I came.
Wow. At least you passed.
Yeah, it's true. I have a cute certificate that I can put on my wall.
Do you still have it up? No.
Yeah, no.
Oh, you do? No. Part of me was like, oh, maybe she does. Oh, I probably shouldn't have brought it up.
Oh yeah, it's just right over there.
Yeah, right. But you throw darts at it now.
Yeah.
We'll hit the promotion because there's quite a few ACA shows on, and Truth Wanted is one of those. It also includes non-profits and secular sexuality and Talk Heathen, and of course the Atheist Experience. And if you didn't catch all of those shows this last week, here's a little taste of what you probably should go back and catch up on.
I think a lot of trans folks miss being invisible or less visible, or certainly not 90% of Tucker Carlson's talking point. Like, Jesus.
God, I'm just saying you shouldn't blaspheme against God, and you shouldn't be allowed to blaspheme against freedom.
Emmanuel, you know what I say to that? I say, you. I say I will blaspheme God all the day.
Everybody thought I was a villain, but now they're seeing I was anointed by God. This is 24 hours before he got arrested.
Terrible.
But the irony is thick. The irony is thick.
Hey, don't own people because that's messed up.
You know, it's a shame I don't have all of that, knowledge and power and compassion that the Almighty Creator, Yahweh, has.
And I must say, if your belief in God is causing you to be a less shitty person, then please keep believing in him. But the point is, there's no evidence to suggest that a God is needed for us to be good people or empathetic or compassionate.
Have you got a twin? Because I saw someone look very much like you just then.
Me?
Yeah.
No.
No twin.
Nope. I have 4 older brothers
and
no sisters.
But no. So it must have been you on secular sexuality then.
Oh yes. That was me. I may or may not be joining forces and helping out a little bit more with secular sexuality.
There you go.
It's a great show. People should check it out. It's very underviewed because YouTube algorithms and stuff.
Right.
So
We'll fix that one day on YouTube. So like the architecture, this is something that's got me. I'm sorry, I'm just fascinated by this whole differences between Canada, US, and UK. And one of the big things that's jumped out at me is the difference in buildings. And I don't know how it is in Canada because I've never been. I do want to go. But over in the UK, churches are massive, grand buildings that are billions of years old, older than time, and they're like
I do remember that.
Yeah,
very like awe-inspiring. Going to any churches or cathedrals or anything in I mean, Canada is a very young country considering.
But so over here, because I'm in Bible Belt America, it seems that almost any building is a church, and they're not fancy. There's a church across the road from me that looks like it could be like a gymnasium or something. And so it just seems like we just need to fill as many buildings as we can with people and talk about a religious thing. So they just pop up everywhere. But I think in doing that, it seems like they're very under used, and you maybe get these huge buildings that have 3 or 4 people in them. And that is the same in the UK, although the buildings are older, but it does seem like fewer and fewer people are going to these big grand buildings because they just don't believe. But what's it like in Canada? Is it huge, or is it like America pop-up buildings?
You've irked on one of my major kind of issues that I have because I would say that in Canada, my experience has either been that you either are in this mega church looking building with like a huge stadium kind of things, or huge gyms, huge conference halls kind of thing, but they only get used 2 days a week maybe.
Wow.
And then they just underutilized community space for the rest of the week, and like a tiny little office corner off the side of it. Or there's a big kind of push for kind of this more underground church kind of feel where it's actually just a rented gymnasium at a public school. That's a big kind of like almost a trend, I would say, in the last like 15 years in Canada, is to once the criticism comes in that you have these huge buildings and you're not really doing anything with it, there was a lot of churches that kind of broke off and went more to like the coffee house kind of feel to it.
Oh, wow.
So they will rent a building. So they don't have a church building the rest of the week. They will rent a gymnasium at a public school. And so when you come to church, the entire team, who leads the music and everything, they have to haul everything in. And there's some kind of what's the word I'm looking for? There's a authenticity, but like kind of like a little bit of hubris to that. Like that, like, oh, we are so legit trying to share the gospel that we even haul all our gear from our garage every week.
Oh, wow.
And like, yeah, there is like these wooden chairs and like a pot of coffee. Like that was very big. I would say like even 10 years ago, it was huge. And that's still kind of a thing, especially along like millennials and that sort of age group. Because I think we got really sick of like this like big showy kind of church building, huge concert kind of halls thing, but like no community. So there's these smaller branches, which are just mini branches of a mega church. They're like a mega church squished into 40 people.
Wow.
Yeah. But then the other thing you get from that is that these pastors who are employed at those churches, but they don't actually have an office. So their job is to meet with people and go to Starbucks every day.
Wow. Wow. What a job.
Yeah.
I mean, I like a good Starbucks. I'd do it.
Yeah. I mean, so to some parts, I'm not saying that all pastors are insincere people. I know people who are in the church who genuinely care about, especially like I know more people who are like youth pastors and that sort. They really do genuinely care about like young kids. And I'm not saying that every youth pastor, but there are people who are not safe. And I still have this, strong belief that you shouldn't send your kids to for coffee with a youth pastor if you don't know where they're going or that kind of thing, obviously.
Yeah. Or anybody.
But it was very, very normal for a youth pastor to come and pick up, a youth and go for coffee and like check in with how they're doing with their life. But that's the feel of a lot of Canadian churches, I would say. Okay. And so now it is similar. There's still a lot of like gym churches. That's a big thing.
Right.
There are still the mega churches, and they're the ones that obviously have a big halls, big centers, but their numbers are dwindling.
Right.
Drastically.
I think they can get away with it in the UK with having these big buildings that aren't being used because they're just so beautiful to look at.
And it's a historical piece, right? These buildings these mega churches that are built in North America are only like 20 years old.
Right, exactly. So
and like they cost a fortune to like heat and light. So I don't know.
Right. Well, it looks like we do have someone who would like to talk to us. Jonathan from Florida would like to talk about traditions as superstition. So, hello, Jonathan. Great name, by the way. That's my name as well. You're on with Jon and Erin. So what have you got to say about traditions and superstition?
Well, I spent about a 12-year career in the Navy, and the Navy's got a lot of traditions to it. And I was just thinking, some of them go way back, like shellback initiations, blue nose initiations are just things you go through and you get a little moniker. And so I was just wondering, at some point, can those kind of evolve? I was thinking they probably evolve into superstitions. Sailors, of course, were very superstitious a lot back in the day. Nowadays, not so much. That's why I was wondering, because I didn't really have a lot of superstitions back then. I was not an atheist at that time. But I was leaning that way, even that was 35 years ago. So it was a little different, So I was just wondering what you guys thought about, like any superstitions that you know about and how they might have gotten started.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
You don't have to have the facts.
Right, sure. I mean, like I was saying earlier about this weird British drain cover thing that people for some reason don't want to walk over 3 drain covers in the UK, and they're set up where they've got this line of break so you can see a definite 3 separate drain covers. For some reason nobody wants to walk over them. I always was told that it was my school friends told me you can't walk over 3. So I was told by my peers not to do it. And I have no idea why that became a thing. Maybe they were told by their peers. It's just somebody someday makes up something and it gets passed on, maybe as some kind of weird tradition. You get school traditions that people pass on because one person one time made it up. We all have to skip school this day. And now isn't there like a skip day in America that they do when I don't know, at some point, senior skip day or something.
Yeah, I think it's something that like seniors do in grade 12 or something. Yeah,
did that just once become like some kids went, oh, let's do this thing, and then all of a sudden this weird thing became tradition. If you don't do it, then you're gonna fail your classes, or if you do go to school on this day and we've all skipped, then you're gonna get us in trouble. I don't know. Maybe they do just start because somebody one day went, let's give some rhyme and reason to this one thing and pass that on.
Yeah, I was thinking of Sadie Hawkins Day.
Yeah.
Yeah. On what day?
It's called Senior Skip Day, I think.
Senior Skip Day. Yeah.
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 I to answer the question, like I think there has been a little bit of like research kind of done into this, like the idea of like how superstitions evolve, and there is like pretty like common mechanism that we go through as humans and like the way that our minds work, and it's just the misattribution of cause and effect. Honestly, it's like it starts with one person kind of having a misinterpretation of what is the cause of something, or like causation and effect on anything, honestly, and then whether that person is effective or not in convincing other people, it can spread. I mean, we know that people can spread false ideas depending on how charismatic they are and how convincing and how sincere they are with their beliefs. So you know, you get a small group of people, and we talk about like societies and how small, you know, communities used to be, and then you get onto bigger communities, and then you add consumerism and commercialism onto it. Now we have superstitions spread on a commercial size. So I think the mechanism itself is pretty straightforward, just a misattribution from causation and causality, and then, you know, you add that years and years and years, and then tradition also can, you know, those things have a line to them. I do think there's a difference between them. I know that like my family, like we have traditions that we do. The reason we do them is not because we think something's bad's going to happen if we don't. We do it because it feels good, and it brings about these feelings of nostalgia, and it brings about, you know, closeness with your family or whatever. And other traditions, I think there can be a clean line between whether it's just a tradition and nothing bad will happen, but you just like it. And whether you think it's like an actual superstition where it has to be done, or a false, you know, this false or negative outcome will happen because of it. So it's just a small kind of explainable a mechanism that happens psychologically for humans on a bigger scale.
And we're pattern finding animals, and we need to explain things certain ways anyway. So it would make sense that if something happened because somebody did something once, and they go, oh, we'll just use that as the attribution, then we'll say that we have to do this from now on. And
when you think about how quickly that can spread, one person has an experience, they misattribute the cause for that, you know, the thing that happened. They tell one person, and by coincidence that happens to that person too. Now you have two people it happened to. How quickly is that belief going to spread?
Absolutely. Maybe that's why whistling in a theater is a bad thing, because somebody once tripped over after they whistled, and
it is very, very fun, a fun endeavor to look back on even the most minuscule kind of tradition that we have, to look back on where that started. And sometimes it's absolutely hilarious where it started from.
Yeah. You know? And there are ways to find all this stuff out as well. So we
most of them. Sometimes we don't know. Like we don't know why they used to, you know, we know why they used to put like bells on at grave sites or whatever, because once upon a time someone was buried and they were actually alive or something, right? Like we know we have some stories to the roots of these, but most people go about in their life and they function with these false beliefs, and they have no idea where it started from. And that's kind of the fun part, I would say, of like deconstructing things, is to like discover this stuff and then be able to be like, oh, that's actually kind of silly, I'm not gonna hold on to that.
Or you go, oh, that's kind of silly, I kind of like it, I'm going to stick with it.
It's kind of silly, but it's also super fun, so we're going to keep doing it.
Have you got any superstitions that you still uphold even though you're a non-believer, Jonathan?
Not really. I mean, there is an old one in the Navy, but it kind of goes both ways as I've heard it. But it's seeing the green flash. And that's when the sun is, when the sun is setting and it just goes just below the horizon, you'll see a little flash of green light. It has to do with the refraction and that sort of thing. And but it's a superstitious that if you see the green flash, you're going to have a safe journey. So it's just one of those things. And then there's the opposite of that, where some people believe that if you saw the green flash, it meant catastrophe. So who started it? Well, I guess one guy had a bad day and the other guy didn't. I don't know.
Sure. And just because you're talking about the sun, it just made me remember the saying that shepherds had: red sky at night, shepherd's delight, and red sky in the morning, shepherd's warning. Meat and potatoes, shepherd's.
Yeah, that's a sailor. They just replaced it with sailor, and they use that.
Yeah, it was sailor. It was sailor when I grew up too.
There you go. That's great.
See, these things change depending on the culture and the word of mouth and what's going on. So
what I'd like to see is when we smash a mirror, you get 7 years good luck. That's what. Right. I might try that one.
So we could just create our.
Yeah, there'd be a lot less mirrors around, I guess.
Oh well, maybe.
Yeah. Well, maybe that would be good. Maybe that would help with like all the body dysmorphia that we have in society. But we can just create our own. That's my question that I always come back to is like, why are so many superstitions so negative, right? Like, why can't we have more of these positive ones? But I mean, that makes sense too. Like,
have positive ones and make it part of our in group. You see, because the traditions obviously are there to help form cohesion amongst a group an awful lot of times. And so we could start our own. Let's think of some good, positive superstitions.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it does make sense. Like humans are usually kind of risk averse. We're looking for how to like avoid negative outcomes with things. So it does make sense to me why like on an evolutionary biology kind of, or evolutionary psychology, like filter that we're looking and seeing why so many superstitions are negative, but kind of sucks. There are like a lot of negative ones out there, so let's work on making some new better ones with realistic outcomes.
When we come back next time, if we co-host a show again, we'll come up with a list of positive superstitions that we can spread around the world.
Like, if you hug somebody, you might feel better. That's not even a superstition. That's probably very true.
It releases endorphins.
Let's base them on science and reality.
That's a really good idea.
There you go.
Well, thanks, Johnathan.
Yeah, I think it'd be great.
Yeah, we'll work on this. But we appreciate you calling. Thank you very much. Traditions
you're
and
welcome.
we need to make some more positive. Make this more positive as we move forward as a society. Thank you, Johnathan.
I think too, as we move away, like, and we have a better, more scientific understanding of the world, like we have more understanding of why things happen, which is obviously why we have less there's less reason to be superstitious about things. But I mean, so many of these things, that superstitions, traditions, they come out of an era when humans and societies, we had no idea what the hell was going on, and we were trying to make sense of it. And the best way that you could keep your kids safe and keep people safe was to like instill these superstitious ideas in them, right? Like, you don't touch that, otherwise something's going to get you at nighttime. In reality, we didn't know why that when you touch that thing, it actually is really bad because it spreads contaminants to you or whatever. So I mean, the more we understand about these things and like have a better understanding of how the world works, the more we can, let go of these things that were keeping us safe maybe at one point, and just kind of, look back at it as part of our history of like how humans evolved into a more rational era.
I like that. I like it. I'm going to just mention quickly that if you can arrange to be in Austin, Texas, between Thursday, January 26th and Sunday, January 29th, you should consider joining us in the studio audience at the ACA Free Thought Library for live broadcasts of secular sexuality. Put my teeth back in. Truth Wanted, Talk Heathen, and The Atheist Experience. Doors will open at 6 p.m. on Thursday and Friday and noon on Sunday. And parking is where you can find a legal spot. Great. After the lot's full. If you can't make it there this month, we will continue to broadcast live from the library the last week of each month. So keep watching this show and take a look on the website, atheist-community.org, for news and information as we expand our in-studio offerings in the near future. I do really, now that I'm in the same country, I do actually want to go down to Austin, and doing, and even if I'm in the audience, just like throwing things at people, you know?
Tomatoes.
Yeah, right. Should we take another call?
Yes, yeah.
Why
definitely.
not? We've got Lord Infidel, he, him in Wisconsin. Hello, Lord Infidel. What have you got for us?
Good evening. Well, what I have for you, he kind of reminded me of something when I was younger. I myself have never really had many superstitions, but a lot of my friends did. And when you were talking about the drain covers, there was a thing up here in this part of the country about cracks in the sidewalk. It was like, step on a crack, break your mother's back. But I was always the out kid, stepping on the cracks. I would walk behind the ladders. I remember as a kid opening umbrellas just to get my friends to scurry out of the room inside of the house. And it was more fun for me to pick on my friends' superstitions, but they never meant anything to me. I've always picked out the black cat because nobody wanted a black cat. I got 2 of them right now. I had a black cat on Friday the 13th because they're sweet animals.
Yes, black cats are amazing. Can we just make it a quick announcement? Go adopt a black cat.
Yeah,
black cats are awesome.
I've got a black cat too. I think, and this is what we were saying earlier. We should make these things positive.
Yes.
So go against
also,
the tradition and get
black cats need more adoption because so many people are superstitious that Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Lord Infidel, but quick PSA.
Oh,
there's
correct,
so many
though.
black cats that need to be adopted at local shelters right now. Go get one. They're super great. They're smart. They're awesome.
They do bring in dead mice every now
They
and
are.
then. But, you know, you
Yeah,
can't have everything.
whatever.
Like my one.
Like all cats.
Yeah, right.
They are. They're gifts for you. They bring you presents.
That's right.
They
But
love
yeah,
you.
they are amazing cats, and I agree. Everybody should adopt a black cat. They seem to get overlooked too much in the shelters and stuff, and I see them there. I got to bring them home. So, but yeah, I never truly did get into, even as a child, none of the superstitions. I'd be the one walking around in the graveyard on a foggy night just because it was nice and quiet. I had no fear of ghosts. In fact, it was pretty cool. Some of the foggiest nights would be a neat place to walk.
Would your friends have like looked at you strange and were you the weird one because you didn't have a superstition?
Oh, yes, I was absolutely the weird one in the group.
Right.
I was odd lot out usually.
Wow.
Because they all had the superstitions as a kid, and they'd get after me every time I'm stepping on cracks. I'm like, I'm really not breaking my mother's back, guys.
No. I said that. I don't think my stepdaughter didn't realize that was a thing until not so long ago when we were walking down the street and I said, "Oh, don't step on that crack," and she's like, "Huh? Why not?" I was like, "Wait, you'll break your mother's back. Have you not heard that song or that saying?" Sorry, and then she stopped and I was like, "It's not real. It's fine. You're okay. You can step on cracks." It's a good time though. A good time was had by all. But it's strange that you.
Oh, it is.
Is Wisconsin, is that usually a superstitious place? I'm not very good on my American geography, so.
Well, they have enough superstition. I was born. I grew up in Michigan, in Detroit, and I moved to Wisconsin about 20 years ago. And yeah, I'd say they're superstitious here as much as anywhere else. The people I grew up around in Detroit, they were very superstitious about all sorts of stuff. Spilling salt on a table, you have to throw it over your left shoulder or something like that. None of it made sense. It was so illogical to me as a kid. It seemed to be to me. Yeah, I was like, no, don't do that. It's gonna get everywhere. You're gonna have to clean it up.
Yeah, right. Makes food taste nice when you're throwing it on the floor.
Makes your person sitting behind you's food taste nice.
Oh, get it in their eye. That's game over. Maybe don't do that on Friday the 13th. They'll attribute it to that. Well,
exactly.
There you go. I feel like I'm learning loads about superstitions. I didn't realize there were quite so many random ones that I'd not heard of before. So this is very enlightening.
Many of them.
Yeah.
It is. I'm sure you heard about the breaking mirrors and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
You
walking under ladders. Yeah.
Well, I made a point to go under the ladders whenever I was out walking around just to mess with them.
That's exactly.
I never
what
had bad luck.
We need to fight these, and what we've mostly learned from this call is that we need to adopt more black cats, and I'm all for it.
Perhaps Friday the 13th would be Adopt a Black Cat
Adopt
Day.
a Black Cat Day.
Let's make it a thing.
Thank you. Can
Come
we
on.
please make this a thing?
Right.
Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th. I can't talk.
Do you want my teeth? Here you go.
Yes. Thank you for your. Okay. Okay. Friday the 13th needs to be Adopt a Black Cat Day, and like that's just the way it should be. And if you don't have a cat, you need to go get a black cat because they're awesome.
They are awesome.
Absolutely.
Tuxedos. Yeah,
They are.
I've got a little black tuxedo. Well, thank you, Lord Infidel, for coming and
Thank you.
calling. We appreciate it, and you stay out of trouble. Don't walk over any drains or anything, and stay away from ladders.
I'm gonna try not to. Indeed, you as well. Watch out! Watch out for those cracks.
Right, exactly. I will. Thank you for calling. The whole walking over drains thing is just going to be with me for forever now. I'm never going to get away from that.
I do feel like I can relate a little bit to that last caller because since I've like kind of let go of a lot of these superstitions, I have become like the one person in like the smaller group of people who has like no superstitions. So it's like when I'm with a group of friends or whatever, like there's always going to be somebody in the crowd that has something that they're afraid of, and I'm like, oh no, it's fine, and then I'll do it thinking that it's going to be like maybe help to break them out of it, but it just ends up like most of the time just terrifying them. But maybe one day they'll be like, oh yeah, that one time Erin did that and nothing happened to her, so maybe I should rethink it.
Right. Everyone's going to have ladders outside their front doors now, just so they have to walk out.
I have a ladder sitting right next to me.
Do you really?
I really do. It's right next to me because I live stream from my garage. So
I knew
and
that.
There's a loft on the top. So there to do my stream, I actually push a ladder over. So
do you?
every night.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. We have got a couple of questions in the chat. I'm going to ask you a question, Erin, and I'll let you take this. How would you define secular humanism, and why is it part of the ACA's mission? That's from Dustin King.
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Well, not that I'm writing anything for any kind of official dictionary website, but I would say that the way that I look at secular humanism is just that humans have the ability to be good and moral and compassionate and all of these positive attributes that we have without God. That it doesn't require a belief in a deity or any kind of deistic morality in order to do these things. So it's the belief that we have that as just a function of being human. So it's basically the belief that good without God. And I think that is one of the reasons why the ACA, the Atheist Community of Austin, promotes that theory and that that foundation as the scope of what we do here, is that we believe that people are good and they don't need to believe in anything superstition or outside of themselves to be that way.
And that's why Erin's here, because she sounds smart. I'm just here to my brain doesn't work very well. I mean, and you said it better than I ever could. I would just say it's like being nice without God. Done.
Being nice
without a God. Being a nice person without
superstition.
A God. Yeah, doing nice things because you want to do nice things, and because there's
because you can, and you don't need any other reason or any other justification outside of yourself that you are a human being and we live here together and we function as a society and we need to work together, and that's enough of a reason to promote that within our own communities. So there's no other reason to draw upon some sort of external thing as far as like deism or theism, and besides no one can agree on anything, so what's the point of using that as your foundation of morality?
Exactly. Right. And have you ever had a believer like find out that you're a non-believer and they go, oh, but you're such a nice person?
Oh, 100%. Yes. Yes, I have.
Right.
I have. And it actually happened not that long ago. I was we were with some, people, kind of work friends, and we had been hanging out for actually a few days because we had gone away, and this conversation came up, and they were talking because we both have kids. My kids are a little bit older. They had just had their first kid, and we were talking about something, and I was like, I try not to make a big deal of it. I'm like, I just say, oh, no, I'm actually not religious. And they go, oh no. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm an atheist. And the look on their face, like, it didn't make sense to them because, they're like, oh, but like, there's something that doesn't make sense. And obviously that just goes to speak towards the bias of, that is another reason why we do what we do, is that the bias and the understanding that most people hold with, within themselves about what atheists or agnostics are is, something that is so, presses up hard against anything religious, and that we cannot be, kind and compassionate, and we can't do these things. But the reality is that there's people all around you that aren't believing, that are non-believers, and a lot of people even within your own family. Like my family found out I was an atheist long after I was an atheist, and nothing about me as a person changed. My the way that I functioned and the way that I gave my time and helped, and nothing about that changed. If anything, I felt a little bit more inspired to do that, because now it was coming from me. I wasn't just doing it on behalf of some nebulous deity. It's just me, because I genuinely care about people. So that is part of the mission of the ACA, is to get our faces out there and realize that, like, this is the face of kind of atheism, not Richard Dawkins or whoever else is out there. Like, we're not just all a bunch of assholes who like need to like yell at people. That's not what
we're just trying to normalize non-belief and show that it's okay to not believe, and you can still do great things and be a nice person, and that's basically what it's all about, and I'm all for it. There we go. We did have another question from Marlon Culp. Hope I said that right. Do you guys think that religion or churches have advantages in the community? Because our churches in the Philippines give children homes, education, and even jobs for a good life. And I think that's that also goes back to the previous question. You can do all that without a belief as well. And I think that's why it's important that we're doing what we do, because we show that actually we would love to help give children homes, and we'd love to help educate people with science rather than with Bibles, and teach people to be good without having to look up to another being.
I have, it's a kind of a loaded question, and I think it's like, it depends on where you're at and where you live, and the region that you're in too. I think that yes, there's a few different things that churches have advantages of over. One of them is the long-standing kind of bias or opinion that people think that churches are doing the right thing always. And I think that's something, again, that we fight against, that no, churches are not necessarily, there's nothing that necessarily says that they're ethically doing good in the community. Yes, sometimes they are feeding people and that sort of thing, but is it ethical when they do it and it comes with some sort of a caveat to something else? Is it good that they're, putting their message out when they have these, these views against people who are LGBTQ or, other things like that? So I think that they profit, or, they benefit from the bias of said communities based on like the reputation that has been made for them. I think that is one of the benefits for it. So I think that is part of what's happening right now, and why there's such a pushback from certain people online that, or anywhere, that when we speak out against the harms that happen, it comes up really strongly against the biases that people have, that churches are good. I mean, talk to anybody who has this perception of Mother Teresa as being like this saintly woman, but then there's a whole bunch of other people, once they find out that like, oh, it wasn't all that good, and there's a bias there. So there is a ton of benefit, and I think that the only way to really combat that is for everybody who's had an experience to use their voice. Just because we are here on the ACA and on Truth Wanted doesn't mean that our voices mean anything more. We're just the most blabby ones that got on this, got on here. Every single person's voice, everybody's story, everybody's experiences are valuable, because every single time someone speaks up about their experiences, it helps to kind of break that that vision that the broader community has of the church as being all good. We need to kind of work towards that being neutralized in a way. Churches can exist, that's fine, I don't care. But if they can continue to exist with this this assumption that people have that everything they do is good, it cannot be questioned, that cannot go on, because that's clearly not true. And people need to commit to supporting other groups that are, there are tons of atheists and agnostic run, or just non-religious secular run groups that are doing just as good of things with the community, with feeding people and doing work with homeless people or the unhoused people, doing all sorts of things. There are groups out there, and they need more focus as well too.
And
so.
that it's interesting because you've obviously got the religious background, so you know what it's like from that standpoint, whereas I'm from a place where because religion isn't that big, like there are organizations in the UK that are mostly, it's more non-religious affiliated than it is religious affiliated. So that to me, the whole question is just bizarre to me, because I'm from a place where it's like it wouldn't even be a question. Because yes, there are churches, but they're just nice looking buildings.
You know, it's so simple as just being, you know, there's a few names, I won't name any of them on here, but there's some, you know, organizations that do a lot of charity work, and they're very well known in the public, you know, public facing. And for the most part, everybody is fine with, you know, giving a little donation here or there. But if you know, if you say to somebody like, I'm like, why are you supporting them? Because they've been very openly anti-LGBTQ or something, you know, something that is, you know, evident harm towards another community. Most people are going to be like, I had no idea, because there's an assumption there. So that happens a lot for the churches too. So even, you know, my friends who are believing still, but, you know, have an affirming view on it. How many people call around to their local churches and asks, are you an affirming church? Are you do you believe in this, and are you willing to have these people? It's actually really startling when you look at even a very large community, how many few churches, because I am all for that. Go to a church. If you still have a belief, go to a church that has the same values as you. So many people that I know right now don't even know what the values are stated on the websites of the churches they go to.
Wow.
So it's like that's important. That's important due diligence that people need to do. Yeah.
Wow. It's just a whole other world to me. I'm learning so much. Well, we have got another question. I'm going to read it out. It's from Gerard.
I love these questions. This is great.
They're great, right? Can we appreciate Jesus as a human, a man with a message, not as a supernatural being? I would say, I mean, I'm indifferent to the whole thing. I know there's the whole mythicist, non-mythicist divide. Like, was he a real person? To me, I mean, no, I'm not really bothered either way. Do I believe that there could have been a person called Jesus, and he believed he could speak to dead people or a god or whatever? Maybe. I've been there. I know that I at one point thought I was speaking to dead people, or dead people were speaking to me and giving me messages. So I completely believe the fact that there could have been that. But I'm indifferent to does it matter if he did? If we can demonstrate that this dude that was supposed to be the son of a god did actually have magic powers and could really walk on water, not as a magic trick like there are some amazing magicians that do it even now. I don't know if they had the technology back then, but you know, I'm really indifferent to it.
I would like to be more indifferent.
Right.
I think I have a slightly different view on it, basically because of how I was raised.
Sure.
I went through a pretty extended period where I hated the thought of Jesus.
Right.
I hated that idea. I was mad about the whole thing, that this name had been used in a way that harmed me and harmed other people for so long. But I would say that, yeah, totally, you can be a secular person and look at it from a historical. Well, first of all, anytime you're looking at somebody historically, there's interpretation always. We can never know 100% what happened in the past. We have probabilities and possibilities and that sort of thing. So for me, I have spent a lot of time, probably way more than a person should reasonably spend, on looking at the person of Jesus and what that meant. I think I obviously lean more towards that there was a historical person, but again, I don't really care. What I do care about is the interpretation of what this person meant as a historical figure. And I would say that in my research, I have found a few people who have inspired me to have some good feelings, some appreciation for who the historical Jesus was. Some scholars that I would say, like James Tabor or John Dominic Crossan, some people who viewed him as more of a revolutionary, or somebody who truly was speaking for the disadvantaged and the poor and the sick and that sort of thing. And I can appreciate that. I mean, we see people who come out of groups of oppressed people, and they stand up and they make a big fuss about it, and sometimes they get killed over it. So I mean,
Right.
I can appreciate that. So if that's who Jesus was, and I can't guarantee that, yeah, that sounds like a guy who he literally did give his life for the cause. I don't think that he's the son of God, or that his death meant anything about my future.
Right.
I just think that maybe I can take some good examples from that. And I would say that, 3 or 4 years out now, I think I care and I appreciate the figure of Jesus as a historical figure more than I ever did as a Christian.
Right. And I think it's very telling that the background does give you, like, lead where you feel on that whole subject.
Yeah, the way that I viewed Jesus as a Christian was, it was this guy who did this thing, and now I have to eternally feel grateful for what he did, and
Right.
I have to constantly be checking myself, and honestly, it was like a feeling of guilt that I if I didn't have that feeling of guilt, I wasn't being appreciative of the sacrifice that he made.
Right.
And like, that was a tall order for a 12-year-old, but
Right. And then a 19-year-old to go and tell other people about it as well.
Oh yeah. So, but now I'm an adult. I can look back at it and be like, man, that guy, whatever his, I don't even know, whatever his mission was that he was on, he really meant it. If he took it to the grave. So that's cool. And there's but I will also say there's lots of other people in history that did just as badassy things too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And some of them were bad as well. Not just badass.
And
but
also
bad.
crucifixion isn't it's tough, but there's this like perception that is the absolute worst way to die ever. And I'm sure it was absolutely horrible.
Imagine being hung, drawn, and quartered.
There's other people who have died horrible deaths for their cause, and like, do they get worship? I don't know. Probably not.
No. Anne Boleyn got beheaded, bless her, and she didn't.
Yeah.
she was fighting for a good cause.
Yeah. So.
Well, I think it's probably time we kind of wrap up, but I'm gonna just do another few announcements whilst I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? If you do want to get in touch with anyone at Truth Wanted, including outside of showtimes, you can email Truth Wanted at truth@atheist-community.org. You can reach out to the ACA at tv@atheist-community.org, and you can see what's going on our website at atheist-community.org. There's also a Facebook group, and it's run by the fans, for the fans. You just have to go to tiny.cc/FBTWG to interact with other fans of Truth Wanted and other shows in the ACA. And thanks, Erin, for hanging out with me for a little while. I mean,
I've had so much fun.
Right.
I'm so glad we could have just chat for this
Exactly.
last little bit.
Exactly. I hope we get to do it again. I do know that there's going to be a Discord hangout after the show. And so you can join us there at tiny.cc/ACD Discord. Did I say that right? Probably.
Yep.
Probably
Got
not.
it.
And what are you doing anything fun this weekend before we go?
Oh, I'm actually traveling. I'm going away on vacation with my husband on Sunday.
Oh, that'd be nice.
To an undisclosed location.
Oh, don't.
No, I'm just kidding.
No,
we are traveling. We're going on a little bit of a second honeymoon, if you will. So,
oh, nice.
Without the kids. So.
Oh, sweet. I'm actually giving blood.
Oh, that's
America.
So much more honorable.
I tried to do it last year, but because I'd been in the UK, because I lived in the UK, during the time where there was mad cow disease, I wasn't allowed to give blood last time. But they called me the other day and said, "Would you please give blood? We've got rid of that rule." I went, "Yeah, come on then, take my bodily fluids."
I appreciate that. As somebody who has been a recipient of blood donations in the past, and who cannot donate blood because of my health conditions, I appreciate your service.
Well, I like to do what I can. You're welcome, I guess.
Moral of the story tonight: donate adopt a black cat.
Yeah,
donate
blood. Donate blood. No, in that order, because you don't want to have not enough blood. Before we do go, we do just have to say a big thank you to all of the crew. I don't know if there's a crew cam. Does a crew cam appear? I'm not sure. I don't know. Yes, it does. Oh, look at those wonderful faces. And I've got beard envy. Great. Thank you for the crew who make like all this happen and make us look great.
Like this.
Great, like this. So that's it for tonight. Thank you. Don't forget to check out the other shows, and see you next week for another Truth Wanted. I've been Jon the Skeptick, and this is ExXtian Erin. And always, as always, remember to keep wanting the truth. See you soon.
Watch The Non-Prophets and join the hosts in the live chat, Sundays at 3 p.m. Central, between The Atheist Experience and Talk Hidden. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.